Tucker Carlson warns they will assassinate Trump if he keeps winning. Here's a clip.
From timcast.com. Tucker Carlson says America is speeding toward assassination of Donald Trump.
Terrifying.
That's a scary prospect.
Yeah.
He said they protested him. They called him names. He won anyway. They impeached him twice on ridiculous pretenses. They fabricated a lot about what happened on January 6th in order to impeach him again. It didn't work. He came back. Then they indicted him. It didn't work. He became more popular. Then they indicted him 3 more times. And every single time his popularity rose. So if you begin with criticism, then you go to a protest, then you go to impeachment, now you go to indictment. None of them work. What's next? I mean, graph it out, man. We're speeding toward assassination, obviously. And no one will say that. But I don't know how you can't reach that conclusion. You know what I mean? Like they have decided, permanent Washington, both parties have decided that there's something about Trump that's so threatening to them, they just can't have him.
A bit of pushback, though. I think they could, if they could have done this, they probably already would have. I just think the Secret Service now is so damn good after like the JFK, and now it's just been 50 years after that. I think the Secret Service is just so damn good that they just can't. I think they would have if they could have. But let's hear what else there's to say.
He later commented, I don't know where it's going, but there's a collusion that's clearly imminent. I've never been this worried about anything as I am about where this is going. If
Fair
people
enough.
don't get serious about their comfort zones, I think they're going to demonize him, indict him. And I think they'll blow his airplane up, Jones said, is Alex Jones. I really, at a gut level, believe they're going to kill Trump. There was a story in, I think it was 2015, a guy tried grabbing a gun from a cop at a Trump rally. There's already been threats made against Donald Trump. And
oh, yeah.
I guess we can only hope and pray it doesn't come to that. But Tucker makes a really interesting point. Now, I will counter. He's not gotten more popular every time they've indicted him. Because I track the favorability and popularity of Trump. It is stable.
He goes up in the polls. People would vote for him.
Is potentially as bad or worse. Stable means that there are people who don't care what the government does or says. They will never abandon Trump. That's it. It also says there are people that no matter what will never support Trump.
Right.
True.
If Trump got more or less popular because of the indictments, that would mean something. Becoming less popular means there are people who supported him but now are backing away. If he becomes more popular, it means that people who didn't support him are starting to support him. No, it hasn't changed because it's locked in right now.
Well,
the left and the right, whatever you want to call it, the political factions are stable.
I don't really know what
and that means
exactly.
all of the things they're doing are just radicalizing people and making the flames bigger and more dangerous.
Which I kind of assume is what they want, right?
I don't know.
Oh,
I mean, it's...
They want people to go nuts.
Man, there's a lot of scenarios in my mind. But if Tucker is correct, I don't see how this country survives another year, 2 years, year and a half.
I don't think Tucker's correct. I forget who we had on the show, but he said you can't, in 2023, you can't do what you did in the 60s, right?
I agree,
you can't give somebody the Kennedy treatment. I think they've already done it to Trump.
Stuff was
and
wild.
We've seen it. It's the indictments. It's the mainstream media with all the pieces throughout his presidency. It's all of that. They've already taken him down, or at least attempted to.
I don't think so.
I don't think
Trump is predicted to win right now. So CNN reported this.
About.
Not my opinion. Calm down, crackpots. CNN said right now, based on all the data they got, it's looking really good for Trump.
Yeah, and he
now
keeps
you take
going
into
up
consideration
in the polls,
that the student loan debt have to kick back on in the next couple of weeks. Think about this. So I was talking to my girlfriend about this earlier. I said, I was passively talking about it, and then she was like, "Wait, everyone's got to pay back their student loans again, starting in a couple of weeks." And I'm like, "Yeah, something like that." And then she was like, "They're not going to have the money." And I'm like, "Right, exactly." And then I said, and the question then becomes, how do they pay for their student loans? If right now we got all these videos of young people saying, I can't afford my bills, how are they going to pay back their student loans if student loan repayment restarts? They're not. And then I'm like, so it's kind of like 2008. They gave out loans to people who didn't have credit and couldn't afford it. And then my girlfriend was like,
always been
well, they got their parents to co-sign. She's like, a lot of these people got their parents to co-sign. And I was like, interesting.
Loans, though.
Then when these 27, 28-year-olds don't pay back their loans, and then the lenders say, your mom or dad is a co-signer, and goes to them and says, you got to pay. And then they go, we can't afford to pay. And they go, then we take your house.
Mm-hmm. And we're seeing TikToks of people that age crying, saying, I did what I was supposed to do. I got the degree. I work hard. I don't party. I did everything I was supposed to do, and I can't afford food.
They lied to you.
I guarantee if it becomes between student loans and putting food on your table, you're not going to pay the student loans.
So
you're going to let them default.
But then what are you going to do when you're like, sorry, mom and dad,
exactly.
you're going to lose your house. You're going to have to pay the consequences of my
I don't know
actions.
what they're talking about student loans. Student loans are always guaranteed to students. I went to college for a couple years, and my parents didn't have to do anything. They just say, okay, this is the allocated amount. You don't have to co-sign for student loans. They just give them out like they're nothing.
I mean, that is a result of the student loan thing, but I think it's going to make a very divided and bitter society.
A bailout.
Yeah.
Also, the only circumstance that seems to make sense would be a government bailout of the student loan system. And that is going to be a disaster because that's another $1 trillion plus instantly pumped into the economy by way of forgiveness, which will cause massive inflation or has already contributed to it. But, oh boy, if you thought rich men north of Richmond was bad, wait till you go to the likes of Oliver Anthony and say, oh, here's the best part. The highest income earners in the country who have nothing but disdain for you and told you to go learn to code just got a $50,000 freebie from the government.
Yeah.
Oh, at least.
And if that happened, that would mean pumping another $1 trillion in would mean that your dollar is worth like 96 cents right after that happens. All those people that already paid their loans back, that have their money devalued, are going to go. I mean, maybe not all of them, but a lot of them get angry at people that are taking tits off taking the government's tit.
To go back to the initial story, what Tucker is saying, where does it go next? People need to consider that none of this stuff is happening in a vacuum. And when it came to the lockdowns and the George Floyd riots, I actually think the lockdowns were the cause of the riots, not George Floyd. We had seen protests before. I do not believe
I think it was
the
both.
George Floyd video is the reason why we had such massive and widespread rioting.
I mean, you had stuff like that with Michael Brown years later, years earlier, the Michael Brown thing in Ferguson, Missouri, and there wasn't lockdowns. So I don't know. They were way worse during George Floyd, but that stuff was boiling up. It's like Trayvon Martin, they were kind of bad. Then Michael Brown got worse, and then George Floyd. But yeah, I think the lockdowns had a role to play. You know, it probably made them worse, but it was a boiling thing that, you know, Obama pushed after Michael Brown, he died, and then Obama's just like, take it to the streets, you know, show them what's important to you, you know, and he's just like, take it to the streets, bro. You're the president. You go and you solve it, right? If there's a systemic problem, you're the president. But no, you know, he just exasperated the situation, and now. Then George Floyd, 5 years later, you know.
Rioting was likely.
But I do think
people were fed up. They were locked in their homes. They were angry. They had no income. Their purpose was stripped. They were becoming unhinged and depressed. And then they were given some, you know, a spark for the tinder. A lot of people will probably say it was George Floyd, whatever. The media definitely said it was George Floyd. But I think we talked about it at the time, that this pent up rage from being locked up. So you take a look at what's going on with Donald Trump as president. You take a look at what's happening now with student loan repayment about to kick in. The economy may fall off a cliff in the next couple of months. We got the guy from Shark Tank saying it. You got Michael Burry of Big Short fame, who shorted the housing market, making a $1.6 billion bet against the S&P 500 and NASDAQ. I think both. It might just be S&P. And we don't know if he's actually cashed out yet or where he's at. But he made a very, very, very big bet against the U.S. economy. And the student loan repayment seems to make the most sense. People who don't have jobs, who can't afford to pay their bills, being told the bill comes due, they're not going to pay it. If you go up to a 27-year-old and say, you can pay your rent, you can buy your gas, or you can buy food, or you can pay your student loans, they're going to say, okay, well, if I don't have food, I die. If I don't have gas, I can't go to work and can't make money. And if I don't pay rent, I'm homeless. Sorry, student loans ain't getting paid.
For anybody that has student loans that isn't able to afford them right now, you can do two things. You can put them on a forbearance, or you can put them on a deferment, depending on your income level. So look into that. You can set them off for years and not have to pay them.
But isn't most of the student loan debt basically owed to the government?
Yes. Over 90, I think it's like 90, at minimum 94%. The majority of it is owned by the government. So the government gave you bad loans and then is saying you have to pay them. Actually, we might just bail ourselves out. We don't know what we're going to do. I mean, it's a terrible system. And we're still issuing student loans. Sorry, I didn't want to cut you off.
No.
It's a point of irritation with me because it just seems like a terrible business model. Yet the U.S. government's like, no, it's fine. Keep getting student loans. Go to college. That's the answer. Even though we have evidence, it's so clear the system is broken and potentially could destroy generations of a family that have worked really hard to create financial stability.
Yeah, I completely agree. And speaking from a perspective of a father, my son is 17. He'll be 18 October. and I've even written articles about this and talked about it on TV. You know, raising a son, and you know, someone who's looking like me the older he gets, and I'm thinking about his prosperity. The only thing I've ever been worried about with my son is what is he going to do as far as college. That's the only thing. I wasn't worried about puberty. I wasn't worried about any of that stuff. Worried about him being rebellious. Never worried about that. The only thing I've ever been worried about, probably since the age of 12, is like, oh my God, my son's about to be a teenager, and he's going to start thinking about what he's going to do after school. And I think about how unfair of a message it is to spread to kids that the only way for you to find success is to sign on a dotted line. You have no credit history, right? You have no income, you have no job prospects, but you have to sign on a dotted line and have hope that whatever you're intending to pursue is going to work out. And obviously that's not what happens. And every year, some kid is competing against you.
Well, it's really crazy that they say this, because they're like, okay, right after high school, you go to college, right? And it's like, you don't even know what you want to do. So you just go choose something, and then you think it's going to work out because these adults lie to you. Yeah, if you're young and thinking about going to college, I would probably skip it. Not even Elon Musk for SpaceX. He says he doesn't care about college degrees. All these tech companies now, they don't care about college degrees. Especially for like coding, you generally just have to show, hey, I can code. Okay, you want to be a doctor or something, that's different. But then maybe actually school is going to teach you something worthwhile. But like gender studies or some bull, just not good. It's just nonsense. Let's put it that way. Yeah, some nonsense. Yeah, don't go for that. It's stupid. It's not going to work out for you. And you don't have to do it. Especially if you want to go back to school when you're like 22, 23, just go get some work experience for now until you figure it out. Why waste all your money just because you feel like you're 18, 19 and you just graduated high school? Okay, I'm supposed to go to school for another 4 years. No, go get a job and figure out your life. And then once you figure it out, I've talked to so many people who went and got a degree that they don't use anymore when they're like in their 30s because they just chose it and they didn't really care because they were young and they just had to. Their parents were pressuring them to go to school. And then the parents are nuts because they pressure them to go to school so early. And then they're the ones who pay for part of it, generally speaking. You know, and then they're talking about the student loans on the other front. Yeah, it's nuts.
And so on and so forth. And they're unprepared. And then you send them out into the world. So they work at Starbucks making minimum wage and tell them they have to pay back $80,000. Meanwhile, their parents told them, well, that's what we did. Yes, but you're not in their situation. You're not.
You probably picked a better degree.
A gouging student loan market. You're not dealing with universities who can charge whatever they want because the federal government will pay it anyways, right? Yep. They're not dealing with these things. And parents, as a parent, I'm saying other parents have given their children bad information. And they're not being aware of what is actually going on.
And again, the parents pay for part of it. They're idiots.
Footsteps. Well, they're following their footsteps into financial hell, basically.
Yeah, it's like the area that they walked through is now flooded, and they tell their kid to walk back through it. That's not a good tactic.
It's like when parents say, well, why don't you just go work at McDonald's? That's how I paid my way through college. Yeah, you can't do that these days.
So how did you inspire your son? What's his next move? What advice did you give him?
I told him the truth. I told him that college is incredibly expensive and you need to weigh all options. There was a period of time that he wanted to do artistry and he wanted to go over to Japan. I've told him, go to other countries.
Japan's good.
Yeah. Now he's changed that idea and he's still thinking about it. But I'm not one of those parents like, you have to do something as soon as you turn 18. He wants to go bounce around Europe next year. But he's working. He's been working this entire time. We started doing homeschooling. But I'm having him think for himself rather than force a narrative onto him that the only way to find success in this world is through college. And for me, as someone who worked in IT, I did the same job as everybody else who got their computer science degree. I went to a 11-month program, for a tech school.
Instead of 4 years of bachelor's and crazy amounts of tuition.
Yeah, my student loans are paid off. So, there are alternatives. And I think parents just have to be aware that what you went through is not what these kids are going through. They're set up for failure going that route. They're set up for a lifetime of financial hurt.
And radicalization.
And radicalization. And one other thing I just want to add, we're talking about the economy dipping, interest rates for housing. You know, my wife and I are looking to buy a house next year. We're looking at the interest rate. What's the situation that we're going to be facing? So now the kids have, I don't know how much money in debt. The interest rates are going up. So even if some kid able to find a decent job, they can't afford to purchase a home. Rent's gone up.
Definitely not.
One of the reasons we're looking to buy a house is because we renewed our lease, $300 increase.
Yep.
Now, thankfully, we make decent income together.
Especially if
but
the
we're a
interest
married
rate's
couple.
going up.
What about these kids?
100%.
Right. So I foresee the Europe is like a European style setup that's happening in America, because all the European adults that I know, most of them live with other people, live with other adults. They all have roommates.
Interesting.
That's where we're going. Thanks for watching this clip from
Very interesting. They kind of went to a weird spot at the end, which is a segment I'm about to do about the student loan stuff starting back up. So that was kind of interesting. But back to the thing about the Trump thing. You know, it's just like, yeah, I think they want to, but like they were saying on this video, the producer, he was like, no, you can't do that type of stuff nowadays. You can't do a JFK situation. It's just going to make him a martyr. It's going to just backfire on them. And then the Secret Service is so good that I don't think they can. I think they wanted to do this before 2020. They just couldn't figure out, like, logistically a way to actually do it. If you like this video, be sure to subscribe for daily news updates, smash that like button, share this video with your friends, and share your thoughts on the story in the comments below. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace out.